Wow. That's all I can say is wow. You guys hear okay in the back? You guys are in the back? I'm not getting anything. Is that a yes, no? Bobbleheads? Okay. Well, that was Mark Brudzinski, formerly of Channel 13 years ago, known as The Blade, if anybody knows that, remembers that. So he's a best-selling author. He just recently wrote a book, It Takes Two. You get a chance, take a look at it. Mark's a great guy. And, so everybody here is great. I mean, I'm just, he's sitting there talking, and I'm, a little shaky, a little nervous here. And I'm touched. I'm touched, and I'm humbled that so many of you came here tonight. I didn't invite a lot of people. You invited, and you can ask the girls here, the team, and I'll thank the team here. They can, look, give a hand for these girls here, everybody here. Normally, we'll invite a lot of people to an event, and you're lucky if you get 20, 30% turnout. This is over a 50% turnout. Wouldn't you agree? It's over 50. And I'm humbled you guys are here. I do these events. I do a lot of events during the course of the year. And people, vendors that I work with, they step up and they sponsor from time to time. And, there's a guy here, Mike, he sponsored some events in the past. He's a mortgage lender. And tonight a guy, Matt Weaver, he came to me, I don't know, 2 months ago. He works with Howard Bank. And he sent me a text this morning. He said, I just want you to know I chipped in. And I wasn't expecting what he did. And so, I just want to thank Matt for stepping up tonight at Howard Bank. And, I just had an aha moment. And the aha moment was, you're here because of a free meal. I just forgot. I didn't think, that's why you're here. So it's not me, it's the meal, right? So I want to thank you to everybody. I'll tell you a story. Some of you heard the story. In 1990, I read my first book. It was Dr. Seuss, The Cat in the Hat. Anyway, but I had a goal. I wanted to get in front of people. I wanted to speak. I wanted to inspire people. And I got this opportunity to speak at Curley High School. What had happened was, a buddy of mine, I met with him. He's a graduate of Curley. He was a personal growth life coach. And we got together, and he was talking about life and what do you want to do? And I said, Jerry, what I want to do is I want to get out and speak. I want to inspire people. I want to move people to action. I want them to fulfill their potential, because that's what I want to do. When I die, when I'm in that coffin, and you guys are at my funeral, if you're all still alive, and whoever's giving my eulogy, I want you up there saying, Rob ran out of gas. I don't want to hear he had all the potential in the world. I want to hear he ran out of gas. So whoever's doing it, make sure you say that, okay? So I told Jerry that's what I wanted to do. And he said, all right, we'll see. A lot of people say, but they don't mean it. About a month later, I get a phone call from the principal of Curley, Barry Brownlee. Some of you guys know the guy. And he says, Rob, Jerry Weinhold was supposed to do a keynote speech for us in September. And he called in tonight and he said he can't do it. He has some other thing he had to do in Indiana. And he says, Jerry referred you to me. He said, you'd be a great guy. You'd do a great job. Now, let me give you a little hint here. Jerry had never seen me speak before. So he went out on a limb. And he put his name to me. And so I'm on the phone with Barry, and he said, tell me about the event. It's an award ceremony for kids getting the dean's list or perfect attendance or whatnot. And I said, I'd love to do it. By the way, how many people are going to be there that night? 650 people. I said, okay. So the night of the event, my wife and I go up. She brings the camcorder, and the camcorder, remember those things, right? She brings the camcorder, and we have dinner with the friars and the faculty and the staff. We finish eating. Barry Brownlee says, Rob, would you like to go check out the auditorium, the lighting, the sound system, the stage? You want to check that out? And I was like, I think it's a good idea. So Debbie and I went over, get in the auditorium, check the stage out. And he looks at me, and he says, Rob, just out of curiosity, is this potentially the largest crowd you've ever spoken in front of? And I looked at Debbie, shrugged my shoulders. I said, Barry, this is the only crowd I've ever spoken in front of. His jaw dropped, his eyes popped out of his head, and I said, Barry, don't you worry about it. I've been talking about this stuff for 10 years. I think we're covered. Now, if you don't know, keynote speech usually lasts about 40, 45 minutes, somewhere in that range. I gave the longest keynote speech ever, because it was my first, 11 minutes. You're not that lucky tonight, sorry. So why are we here? Why are we here tonight? You saw, and I'll give Aubrey a hand. She created this invitation. All the invitation you guys got, you know, Aubrey created that from scratch. So give a hand to Aubrey right here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my wife. She's my angel. And my inspiration and my hero. So thank you, honey. So, not to mention my parents, right? Can't leave you guys out. So why are we here? Okay, this is, you could call it an appreciation party. I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I want to thank you for the business you sent our way. I want to thank you for the referrals. It's a marketing party, you could say. Obviously, I love to get more business. Maybe I just like you. You know, that's not a bad thing, right? You're here because you could be here for that reason. But you know, I want to share with you. We're in real estate. And it's easy for somebody to say, okay, we help people sell homes. We have great system, a great process, and a great team. And oh, by the way, we're realtors, right? But that's going from the outside in. But if we go from the inside out, it's a little different. If I say to you, you know, we want to help people realize their dreams of home ownership, reach those goals. And we have a tremendous team with great systems. And by the way, we sell houses. I said the same thing, basically, two different ways. But I gave you the why first. I don't know if that connected with anybody, but I want you to know the why is we want to help people realize their dreams and their goals. Now, there's a bigger why, a bigger goal behind that goal for me personally, okay? And that is, you saw in the invitation, Rob wants to share with you his true passion. Somebody came up to me tonight and said, Rob, you're getting out of real estate. I said, no, that's not happening, right? Can't afford to do that. Anyway. And then somebody else got the invitation. If I can give you your costume away, Deacon Mike in the back, that's Mike Baxter. He sends me a text, like, I don't know, the next day. He goes, what are you going to do, announce you're going to be a deacon at St. Ursula's? Yeah. I said, no, not yet. Anyway, so but my goal in life is I myself, like I told you, I want to reach my maximum potential. I don't know if you ever do that, but I will push, and I will push, and I will push myself to do that. And if there's others out there, they hear this voice in their head, they hear this voice in their heart, and they don't chase that. Because for whatever reason, they either don't hear it. That's a $50 donation to my favorite charity. No, I'm just joking with you. So there, I lost my train of thought. That's okay. That's okay. So I want to help people, and I'm going to push, right? So people either don't hear the voice at all, they hear it and don't act, or they hear it and they take action at the risk of failure, right? That happens, okay? So I want to be out there, and I want to do the best I can to inspire, whether it's one person at a time, whether it's groups of people at a time. Doesn't matter to me. I just feel in my heart that's what I'm called to do. Now, Deacon Mike thinks I'm supposed to be a deacon, but I think I want to go out there and talk and help people, Mike. So forgive me for that. I'll go to confession later. So anyway. So the next 30 minutes or so, I told you we weren't going to be lucky with the 11-minute thing. The next 30 minutes or so, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the journey that got me here, okay? Then we're going to talk about that voice again, that voice that you hear inside your head and you hear inside your heart. We're going to talk about how to take action on that voice. And then we're going to finish it up with how it all starts. How it all starts. Where does it come from? Okay, where it sprouts from. Okay? So the journey. Gosh, I'm not going to give you a whole 25-year thing, but as Mark said, 1990, I picked up my first book. I graduated from college. I graduated from Florida Atlantic University, and I swore that I would never take another test, and I swore that I would never read another book. I'm done. I'm done, right? 12 years of high school, 5 years of college. By the way, I was on the 5-year plan. Anyway, so I swore I would never read another book. Within 2 months, I'm taking a test. And it was a Series 7 test. It's to become a financial planner, or in those days, a stockbroker. Okay? So I was in Florida, hot, sunny Boca Raton, Florida, coming from Blair, Edison, one extreme to the other. At that time, Boca Raton was like the richest county in the country. So I'm going from Blair, Edison, which you guys know. I don't need to say anymore. There are blue light specials on the corners. So anyway, so I had a 1978 LTD2, right? Vinyl seats. Air conditioning's broke, and I got to drive 45 minutes each way to work, right? And I had an 8-track player in there with one tape, AC/DC for those about to rock. Yeah. And I was rocking up 95 up and down every day, 45 minutes. I didn't want to play the radio. I just wanted to rock it down. So I'm a stockbroker now, okay? And I'm in there 8 in the morning. I'm leaving 8 at night because I'm coming in shorts and I'm leaving in shorts, and I get dressed there because it was so hot in that car. I didn't want to come sweating in my suit every day. So I got there at 8 and I'd leave at 8, right? So one morning I walk in, and we had the partitions, the cubicles, if you want to call them that. And I look over. I'm getting myself settled in, and there's a book laying on this guy's desk. It was called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Anybody know the book? I've read that thing, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 times over the last 20 years or so. And it wasn't about learning how to sell. It was learning how to be better, learning how to sell in addition to becoming a better person, dealing with change, dealing with obstacles, learning that, hey, you are your greatest miracle. You are. I am. You are. Each one of us is our own greatest miracle. We are. And I went home that night, I bought the book, and I read it within 2-3 hours, and I was on fire. And I was like, man, this is great. This is good stuff. It connected with me. It just connected with me. So the next morning, I'm a little over the top, I guess Debbie would tell me, and my kids would tell me. I went to Barnes & Nobles, and I bought every one of this guy's books. I bought every one of them. And over the next few weeks, I read every single one of them. And he had a pattern. Every 2 years, he'd come out with another book. And I would just continue to read these books and read and read and read. So that was in 1990. So for the next 7, 10, 11 years, I'm reading, and I'm reading every single day. And then finally I said to myself, I got to put this stuff to work. Because I'm just reading here and sitting here, I'm not going to get it by osmosis, am I? I got to put this stuff to work, put it to action. So I started working and working and working. And I put down the books for a couple years. And next thing you know, I'm working 3 jobs, and I'm getting nowhere. I'm like, well, something's not connecting. These books say do this, that, and the other thing, and I'm working, and it just isn't matching, because I really wasn't doing what was true in my heart, okay? And I kind of figured that out. So I meet Jerry, like I told you, in 2001, and I set these goals up, and I do that presentation at Curly, and we send the tape to this guy, this real estate coaching company. His name's Brian Buffini. Right? I send it to him, and I said, Brian, I want you to take a look at this video, and I want your honest to goodness constructive criticism, please, And I saw him at an event a couple months later at a seminar, and he says, Rob, he says, this is what I would tell you to do. He says, join Toastmasters. Now, I can look at that one of 2 ways. Either I was that bad and I needed help, or I got a shot. I got a shot at this thing. And I wanted to take it as if I had a shot. So I joined Toastmasters, and Karen Bailey and Will Getty's over here. They're my Toastmaster buddies. Been part of that for 12 years. If you don't know what Toastmasters is, it's a public speaking venue. You learn how to become a better public speaker. More importantly, you learn to become a better listener. Because that's what this life is all about, listening to what's on other people's minds, what's on their hearts. That's what listening is all about. And you find somebody's needs and you meet it. And God knows there's a lot of people in this world that need a little confidence, that need a little boost, that need a little encouragement. That's what's out there, and that's what we need to do. And I think each one of us has a God-given responsibility, not only to help ourselves, but to help others. And to do that, you gotta help yourself first. I can't go out there and save the world, not that I can, or do it, if I can't save myself. I can sit here and say, hey, I want to give you 100% of my love, Mom and Dad, but if I don't love myself enough to do that, how can I give it all to them? I can't. So I got to work on me. I got to work on me, and each one of us has to work on ourselves to be better and to do better. So I read that book. He says join Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters. And I get involved in some of these speaking things, and I fell in love with it. I'm like, this is how I'm going to connect with people. But my first Toastmasters contest I got in, I just talked about personal growth, and I didn't place, didn't get any awards, And then somebody said, Rob, you speak well, but you got to tell stories. You got to get involved in stories. You got to tell stories. You got to connect with people. That's how you connect with people, through the story. So I went back and I worked on it, and I honed the skill, and I worked on telling stories, and I got pretty high up in a few contests. One year I was one contest shy of going to the international championship out in Vegas for an international world speaking contest. I'm trying to tell you, I think I'm pretty good. You might think otherwise by the end of the night, but anyway, it was really a pretty neat experience. So so the passion I want to share with you is that how I can help other people. And I want to use real estate as a means to get out there, get in front of individuals, and get in front of groups. And if that's in front of a company that you can put us in front of, and I'm talking to them, motivate them, or if it's just somebody that just needs to have a conversation. If somebody's hurting, if somebody's bothered by something, if I can help just with a word of encouragement, that's what I want to do. So that's somewhat of the journey. And it brings me here tonight. And I've been telling these girls, my wife and these girls, and Gary, you know, I've had many conversations I've had with you over the years that I want to write a book, you know. And I got 4 chapters written, and I took a break, you know, because sometimes we feel insecure. And sometimes you feel like you're not good enough, you know. So I got 4 chapters written in a book, and let me tell you, it's coming. So what I want to do tonight is I want to drive a stake in the ground in front of you 70 people here, and you're hearing me tell you that's where I'm going. A book's getting written, and my intention is to, along with real estate, is to get out there and be more intentional about inspiring and impacting people. And whether that's one-on-one or in groups in business, in front of businesses, that's God's will, not mine. So we'll figure that out, you know. So anyway, that's the journey. Okay, so what's the first piece of, I talked about the voice, right? I mean, yeah. So what happens when you feel a voice talking to you? What do you hear? Is it something like this? What's that sound? Don't tell me it's a pitchfork or a tuning fork.
Vibration.
What's that sound? Can you hear it back? What else? It's not, echo's not the word. Vibration. What is it? It sounds like a humming to me. It's a humming, right? So when you hear a voice, and when a voice is calling your name, it's asking you to do something, it's like a humming in your heart. So my connection is this. When I think of something that really turns me on, it gets me juiced, I think of this tuning fork and how my heart's humming at that time. So I could be sitting having a conversation with somebody, and then we start talking about personal growth, and I just feel the juices in my body. I feel them rise. I'm like, this is the stuff I want to talk about. This is the stuff I want to live. And that's what gets me fired up. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to share a story with you how by following that voice, you can make a change. See, back when I met that guy, Brian Buffini, in 2001, he introduced me to this guy by the name of Curtis Oakes. And this guy, he lived in Texas, big guy, burly guy, pastor. So he was a speaker, right? And he calls me up out of the blue one day, because we had connected for a few times in seminars. And we're having a conversation. He says, Rob, he goes, you will go to the next level in your life and in your business when you listen to that voice, when you listen to that humming in your heart. Remember what I said earlier. Sometimes we don't hear the voice at all. We hear it and we don't act, or we hear it and we act. But what happens, what can happen when we act? What can happen? Somebody want to shout it out when we act? Success is one thing. What's the opposite of failure? And what happens when we fail? We grow, we learn, we become better, right? But we're so afraid of failing that we won't even act. And I've been guilty of that many years. We don't act. But it's not the fact that you fail. It's not the fact that you got knocked down. It's what you do after the fall. It's what you do when you get back up. Who the person you become after you made a mistake, after you failed, after you fallen. That's what it's all about. Who do you become after that? So what happened was, I'm in Toastmasters, and I'm guilty of this, Karen and Will. What happened, I was belonging to Toastmasters. I was asked by this woman, Karen Story. She had started a Toastmasters club in prison, in Jessup Prison. And they called it the New Genesis Club. New beginning, right? And they have these contests. They have the evaluation contest. And she had asked me if I could be the speaker for 10 inmates to evaluate. And I'm like, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I walked out of the event after talking to her about it, and I'm like, what in the world did I just get myself into? I'm going to jail. As a guest, I might add. I'm going to jail. And I was like, oh my gosh. You know, I didn't say gosh, I said something else, but as you can imagine. So I went home and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, all right, I'm not just going to give a speech about this, that, or the other thing. I'm going to give these guys hope. Because this facility, it was a pre-release facility. These guys were getting out of jail from a month to 4 years. Anytime in that time frame, they're getting out of jail, right? And I'm thinking, I want to go in there and I'm going to give these guys hope. I'm going to give them a message of hope. I got 7.5 minutes to do it. Right? So you got to make an impact in 7.5 minutes. So I went and I watched The Shawshank Redemption. Great movie. Everybody see it? In my mind, one of the greatest movies. I love that movie. That movie's about hope, right? So I got 20 guys. I pull up into the parking lot, and there's 20-foot fences, all these 5 different buildings, razor wire at the bottom, midway, up at the top. And I'm walking towards the gate, and I'm seeing these guys in the courtyard. They're working out. They got the cut-off thermal undershirts on. You see their breath coming out of the air. And I'm like, holy cow, I'm going in this place. I'm going in. I just hope I don't have to stay, right? I'm going in. You walk in, they escort me to the room. We're in this room. It's about a 15 by 20 room, and there's 20 inmates in there. And I'm like, it's happening. There's no turning back now. It's happening, right? So we go in there, and a Toastmaster, one of the guys, has to introduce me. But what happened was, before I did that, I had to think of a title for this speech. And I'm in Toastmasters one night, as I was saying, Karen, and I'm doodling, and I'm like, jailbreak. Jailbreak. And I'm like, that's a great title for a speech in prison. Don't you think? And I'm like, this is great. This is great, jailbreak. This is great, right? And I wasn't paying attention to what was going on in Toastmasters that night. I was just worried about the speech, right? So I'm like, jailbreak, this is great. So the voice is telling me to title this speech Jailbreak. Within minutes, I'm like, probably not a good idea. Probably not a good idea. Next thing you know, jailbreak, Rob's doing a speech titled Jailbreak. You hear the guards behind the door, click, click, shotguns ready to go. A riot breaks out. I'm like, maybe not a good idea. And then I remembered the conversation I had with that guy. He said, Rob, you will go to the next level in your life and in business when you listen to that voice inside of you. At that point, I said, to hell with it, I'm going with it. Jailbreak it is. So now we're in prison. We're in this room, 20 guys. And the guy stands up and he says, our speaker today is Rob Commodari. The title of his speech is Jailbreak. And you see these eyebrows raised and some snickers just like you did now. Are you guys in jail too? Have you been in jail? Anyway? And you hear the snickers and he pauses and he goes, again, Rob Commodari, Jailbreak. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So this is what I do. Every time, and I just did it tonight, by the way. So every time I get ready to do a speech, right, I'm standing in the corner, he says my name, he introduces me, and I'm like, God, I say this prayer, I swear to you, every time. God, please let the words come out the way they need to be spoken, and let them be heard the way they need to be heard. And if this doesn't work out, it's your fault, not mine. So lo and behold, we get there, there's 20 guys standing there, and I look out, I look at all 20, I'm like, hey guys, I'm planning a jailbreak. I need to know, are you in or are you out? It's a simple question. Are you in or you out? Just like that for 20 seconds, silence. And their eyebrows are looking up. This guy's crazy. And when I said, listen, I said, I'm not talking about the kind of jailbreak where you jump the fence and run for freedom. I'm not talking about digging under the walls and wanting freedom that way. That's not the jailbreak we're talking about tonight. I'm talking about breaking down the walls that you and I and everyone in this room here tonight and then have inside our own heads. The walls of fear, the walls of anxiety, the walls of jealousy, the walls of insecurity. Those are the walls we're breaking down tonight. I'm going to ask you one more time, are you in or are you out? I'll tell you, I thought I was watching the Arsenio Hall show. Woo, 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 they all jump up. We're in, right? I'm like, this is great. I'm like, we got them right where we want them. We got them, So I went on to do a lot of analogies of Shawshank Redemption. And the one thing that really stands clear to me is in the movie they talk about, if you remember Andy Dufresne and Red, the guy was in there for most of his life, like most of them anyway, but anyway, they were in a courtyard talking one day, and he was talking about, Andy was trying to give Red hope about getting out. Did you ever think about getting out of prison? He says, I'm too far gone. I'm institutionalized. What does that mean? Okay, they're institutionalized in prison. Okay, they go into prison, they see these big walls, and they're afraid of them, right? Then day after day, they get used to them. And then, over time, they depend on those walls. On the outside, we walk into a situation, there's a big wall of fear. And guess what? We're afraid of it. And then we start to get used to fear, right? And then finally, we used fear to motivate us to get us through the day. So are you any different in jail than I am outside? You're institutionalized inside. I'm institutionalized outside in my own mind and your mind. So how do you break that? With a little bit of hope. You got to have a little bit of hope, right? So we do the whole presentation, and I finish with this. I got 20 guys in the room. They're thugs in my mind, right? And I asked them to close their eyes for the last minute. Now, if you remember in the movie, Andy Dufresne escapes through 1,500 feet of a waste pipe, right? And I said, guys, close your eyes for me for 1 minute. Just going to ask you for 1 minute. Think about tonight. You're getting out of jail tomorrow, and you got a 1,500-foot corridor that you got to walk down to get out of prison. And you go to bed tonight, and they shut that cell door shut. Boom! You hear that noise. And now you're thinking, gosh, I'm only 1,000 feet away from freedom as I continue to walk down the corridor. And then you're walking, and you got guards escorting you, and you hear the echoes of their shoes, click, clack, click, clack, as you're walking down that hall. You're 500 feet away from freedom. You're not turning back. You got to keep walking. You're 200, you're 50, you're 10 feet away from freedom. You can't go back. They're going to push you out. You got no choice to go. You enter the door, and as you approach the door, you got these walls of fear and anxiety coming up in your mind because you don't know what you're going to do and you don't know where you're going. But you got to ask yourself one final question. Do I get busy living or do I get busy dying? That's what these inmates had to ask themselves. And I stopped there dead. Quiet like this. And they jumped out of their seat and gave me the old sitting hall cheer again, right? And I'm like, wow, this was incredible. We went on to do the evaluations, right? So first guy comes in, and he stands in the corner, and I'm sitting over here, and he's over here, and he's evaluating me, and he's talking to me, and there's 19 other guys there. So one of the toast specialists says, look, when you guys get up and evaluate Rob, go talk to the audience. Don't talk to Rob, talk to the audience. I said, I'll fix this right now. I got up, and I got right in the middle of the 19 guys. I'm feeling right at home, right? So they finish the thing, right? The last guy steps up, and he's at the podium, and he says, Mr. Rob, he says, thank you so much for coming out here tonight. You've made us feel really comfortable. And just thanks for taking the time to do this for us. We appreciate it. But please, don't get mad at what I'm about to say. And everybody's quiet, right? All the inmates. He says, Mr. Rob, he goes, if I didn't know any better, I would have thought you were one of us. God's honest truth, that's what he said, right? I looked at him, he looked at me, and I said, you just paid me the biggest compliment you could ever paid me. He's got a tear running down his cheek. I got one running down mine. I said, all I wanted to do was connect with you guys tonight. That's why I came down here. And you just told me that's what I did. You know, years later, I went down 3 different times, right, to prison and talking to the guys. I got a 7-page letter from a guy, an inmate, telling me how I inspired him and how he was impacted by what I did. If I didn't listen to that voice about doing that speech and doing it the way I did it, that guy would have never got impacted. I don't care if he was in prison, if he was a thug or whatever, he would have never got impacted. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to listen to that voice? What are some action steps you could take away, right? It's a skill we can learn. It's a skill we can learn to listen to that voice. First, you got to remember, when you acknowledge that voice, you're going to feel this. You're going to feel that in your heart. You're going to feel alive. When something you're thinking about, you're going to feel it in your heart. So you first got to recognize that voice. You got to recognize it, right? So you can read, you can pray, right? Thank you, Mike. You pray, you can meditate, you can listen to audios. Those are some action steps you can do, but what does that do? What happens is we got 50,000 thoughts going through our minds every single day, and it's all this junk, right? The wires in our brains are kinked, so the good stuff can't get through to us. But if we read the good stuff, if we listen to the good stuff, if we take some quiet time, how much quiet time do we have here? Kids, business, work, life. If we take 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, quiet time, your life can change. It can change. It can take a whole new direction if you take those steps. But there's something to it. We got to trust that voice. Isn't it hard to trust? Trust that voice? It's almost impossible. You know, we say trust God, let go, let God. How hard is that, right? We say it, do we do it? Do we trust that voice? So first, again, read, pray, meditate, quiet time, all that stuff. It's all important. We do those things. If you take anything away from here, do one of those things and do it every day with consistency, and over the course of the year, you'll be better. You'll probably be 100% better than you were at the beginning of the year, okay? So how do you learn to trust that voice? I got a lesson, I guess call it a lesson in humility or a lesson in learning how to trust. It was about 7, 8 years ago. I wanted to learn how to swim, okay? My kids were taking swimming lessons. I'm watching these guys coast across the pool. Mike Moscato could swim the heck out of it, swim the daylights out of people. I mean, I watch these people just go. I'm like, I can't do that. Number one, I'm afraid of the water. I can do the doggy paddle pretty darn good, and I can swim underwater pretty darn good. But I couldn't do the strokes, right? I just couldn't do them. And I'm like, I want to learn how to swim. I want to learn how to swim. I want to get over the fear of the water, and I want to get some exercise, right? Let me learn how to swim. So I'm a goal-setting guy, right? I've been setting goals for a lot of years. And I'm sitting in front of my computer one day, and I'm like, I'm going to sign up for swimming. 20 years later, or whatever it was, I'm going back to college for 1 credit, swimming 101, right? So I fill out the application, and I go to hit send. I couldn't do it because I knew if I hit that button, it was real. So I said, I'll get it tomorrow. So I came back next day. I'm sitting at my desk, typing everything in, go to hit send, and I stop again. Couldn't do it. I was afraid. So I'm like, look, if I'm a goal-writing guy and I'm talking to people about writing goals, setting goals, and accomplishing goals, I need to practice what I preach. So sure enough, next day I come in, fill out the application, close my eyes, and hit send. Boom. Now I'm a swimmer. Level 1, beginner, right? So I'm like, wow, I'm going to Essex Community College. I'm going to be a swimmer. I'm 40 years old, and I'm going to be in a room with 17, 18-year-olds, and they're going to be blowing by me, and I'm going to be this Italian. Well, that's a problem, by the way, isn't it, being Italian? Do you know what I mean? Hairy. Not to give you a visual, but my nickname in college was Magilla Gorilla. So I'm like, I can't do this. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be embarrassing. So me being insecure, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks before swimming, I get in front of the mirror and I start trimming, right? And I got distracted and I got a divot. I'm like, I got to clean this up. So I'm shaving it like a baby's butt, man, right? And I get up to this part and the angle of the trimmer wasn't working. I'm like, God, what the hell? It's only a little patch here. So I take some shaving cream, put it on, right? I'm telling you, smooth as a baby's butt, man. I was proud. I'm like, I look good, right? Next day I wake up, I got this one big red zit on my chest, right? I'm like, you dumb son of a gun, right? I'm like, wow, Rob, what do you worry about what other people think for? You know, just believe in who you are. You know, God made you a certain way, and you're worried about shaving your chest and your back, so people worry about what other people think, and now you got zits all over your chest from a rash. And then, as the hairs start coming out, I'm giving you a little TMI here, I know that, but I feel like we're close-knit, right? The hairs start coming out, and they start growing back in. I got ingrown hair, so what do? I start plucking them. Right? You guys having fun with this? I start plucking them. And then so it doesn't get infected, I start putting peroxide on it. Right? So what's it doing? It's drying it up. So I was walking around like Magilla Gorilla for the next 2 weeks, right? So I can't believe I did this. I just couldn't believe it. So over the next 2 weeks, it cleared up a little bit, but I still had a little bit of a rash there. First day of swimming, lady says, all right, level 3 over here, the experts, intermediates over here, and level 1 over here. So I waited for everybody to go in. You know, I didn't want them to see my red chest, you know. So I took my sweatshirt off, and I jumped in up to here so no one could see it, right? So she says, okay, this is what I want you guys to do, beginners. She says, you know, I want you to tread water for like a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, and then I want you to push off the wall and see how your stroke is, right? Now, I'm a type A guy. I'm a guy that likes to make things happen. I get up in the morning, and I'm like a bat out of hell. I'm frantic, right? I just want to go, just make it happen, right? So it's my turn. So I start treading water, and my hands are flopping, legs are kicking everywhere, and the water's splashing. And she goes, all right, push off the wall. So I'm like, my head's going like this, you know, like that, right? And she goes, Rob. She goes, slow down. She goes, you're coming off that wall like a bat out of hell. She goes, you gotta learn to trust the water. You gotta learn to let it come to you. You know, she goes, you gotta let it be your friend. I'm like, wow, that's pretty profound. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, if I let this thing called swimming come to me, if I let it come to me, maybe I can learn to let life come to me. Maybe I'll be a better husband, I'll be a better father, I'll be a better realtor, I'll just be better just by learning to let things come to me. That's a hard task. And she's looking at me, she goes, what the heck is wrong with you, right? I'm like, just trust me. It was profound what you said, and you just gave me an aha moment, and you inspired me, right? So I just had this baptismal renewal, right? I'm going swimming every day because I want to learn to let life come to me, right? So my goal was to get some exercise, get over the fear of the water, and learn how to swim. That was my goal. Now I want to learn to let life come to me. So I was excited. I was fired up to get in that pool every day, right? So next thing that happens is it's a couple weeks down the road, and the Orioles had started their season. This guy by the name of Dave Hernandez, he was called up. He's a rookie. He pitches 7 innings, shutout ball, and the Orioles win. And they're interviewing him at the end of the game. And I think Amber Theo Harris was interviewing him, and she goes, what do you attribute your success to tonight? And he says, well, I was going to make my pitches, hit my spots, and then I was going to let the game come to me. Like, it's kind of what I heard in the pool that day, right? And then Danica Patrick, a few weeks later, she was getting ready to race in the Indy 500, and they were interviewing her before the race. And she says, you know, the guy interviewing her says, you know, what's your plan? What's your strategy? And she says, I'm going to, you know, hit my marks in and out of the pits, and then I'm going to let the race come to me. I'm like, wow, there it is. I'm going to learn to let this thing come to me. So I'm like really fired up. That's a confirmation of what the lady told me in the swimming pool, even though she didn't know she told me that, but that's what she told me, you know. So I'm like, okay, this is great. So now I'm really into it. So now we're the last week of swimming, right? And I thought, I'm on top of the world now, right? And I hate the backstroke. Anybody like the backstroke? I can't stand the backstroke. So I got to do all these 4 different strokes, right? So I'm in it's a shallow end, it's a deep end, and it's a shallow end. So I come off the wall and I'm doing my backstroke, you know, I don't like that shit. I'm cruising, right? This person comes zooming by me and splashes water in my face. And I'm right in the middle of the deep end, and I start choking, and I'm coughing. I'm like, tread water up, just stay above water. Just stay above water. Just stay above water, right? And then bang, a light bulb goes off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And I'm like, this isn't about exercise. This isn't about getting over the fear of water. This isn't about learning how to swim. It's not even about learning to let life come to me. I'm sitting there thinking, there's a lifeguard standing right there. And I'm choking in water where there's another 50 people in the room. Like, I'm not going to drown. But I'm thinking in my mind that I could. And I said to myself, wow, if I go down right here, right now, who's going to jump in and save me? Who's going to jump in and save me? The lifeguard, right? So I'm thinking, right while I'm in the middle of the panic attack, I'm like, okay, well, guess what? If I get this voice talking to me and I try something and I fail and I go down, who's going to save me? I think the man upstairs would. As long as I'm doing my best every day, whether you fail or you succeed, there's somebody out there, there's a higher power, and I believe it's God. He's going to come in, he's going to save you. He's going to teach you a lesson, but he's going to save you if you believe that. So I'm like, wow, you got me involved in this swimming and teach me how to trust you? I said, okay. Good move, God, right? So trust that voice. You got to trust that voice. So what can we do to trust that voice? First thing you need to do is recognize. You got to recognize that it's there. You got to know that it's there. You got to hear that humming in your heart. You got to know what it is. Because when it's there, it's something good. It's something good. Trust me, it's something good because it wouldn't be coming if it wasn't good, right? So you got to recognize it first. And then we got to set just small goals because we're not going to trust it right away. So we set some small, little time goals, trust it, take some action, and see if we succeed at that. And that builds a little bit of momentum. That builds a little bit of encouragement. And then we keep moving forward. And once we have success in the little things, then we do the big things. We try the bigger things. And yes, you may fail. But you're going to learn from that. You're going to figure it out. Because whenever, like we talk about in our business, whenever there's an issue, something goes wrong, we never have problems, right? But whenever there's an issue, that's a good reason to set a new policy, a new procedure. So it's a chance to learn something. So by trusting that voice, you're either going to learn by success or you're going to learn by failure. But guess what? You're going to learn, right? Where does all this stuff start? Where does it begin? I got a question for you. Anybody remember the day they were conceived? No, I doubt it. Anybody remember the day you were born? Nobody remembers the day you were born? I know my parents did. I'm sure they did, right? What happened that day when you were conceived? What happened, okay? He took this little seed. He took this little seed. Let's call it potential, right? He took this little seed and he planted it in your heart. Each one of us got this seed planted in our hearts, right? And the job was to nurture that over time. Let it cultivate itself, right? And then let it sprout. Let it become the person it's supposed to become, right? So when we're young, we're 3, we're 5, we're 7, we're 11, we're invincible. We can do anything, right? And at some point in time, something changes. Something changes. We start worried about what others think. We start seeing somebody else achieving success. Oh, I want to be like Mike. I want to look like Susan. I want to dress like that person. I want that kind of money. I want to drive that car. But is it really your goal, or is it somebody else's goal? So we start doing that. And then what happens is, as we start trying to make somebody else's goals our goal, our true potential gets buried further and further, deeper down inside. And then the deeper it gets buried, the harder it is to come out, right? So we need to, I call it when you have these distractions in life, worried about other people's goals and wanting to succeed like them or look like them or be like them, you know, you're not being true to yourself. You're not being true to yourself. So the thing I think about is Braveheart, the movie Braveheart, William Wallace. You know, the guy was willing to die for his country. He was willing to die for his land, right? And when we get up every morning, the question I ask you and I ask myself, am I willing to die of my false self, those false feelings, those false insecurities? Am I willing to die of those societal pressures to be truly who I am? Am I willing to do that? Because it's an up at dawn, down at dusk fight. It's a fight, you know, because we have things that are always distracting us. So Mark Twain says this. He says, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you found out why. It's pretty powerful. The day you found out why. Not everybody here might know that why yet. You might not know it. But it's there. You just got to discover it. You just got to listen for it. You got to take that seed. You got to cultivate it. You got to read. You got to pray. You got to trust. You got to take action. And soon, somewhere along the line, your true self's going to come up. Like I brought this orange here tonight, right? A couple people are like, what's that? What's that? It's a prop. I'm not going to eat it right now. It's a prop. So when I squeeze this orange, what comes out? What comes out? What kind of juice? Orange juice. Why? Because that's what's inside. So when you get squeezed a little bit, when you are true to yourself, what's going to come out? Who you truly are, because that's what's inside. That's what's inside, and you got to allow you can't be an orange and have apple juice come out, can you? You got to have Mike juice, you got to have John juice, Mary Ann juice. You got to have your own juices, right? That's what's inside. So let it come out and let it be you. You know, we've talked about three things here. Four: the journey, the voice, trusting the voice, and letting that seed inside of you grow. I'm going to share a little poem I wrote with you, for you. And what happened was that was a networking event. And it was a leadership event. They talked about people networking. They hand each other business cards, and they say, well, I met so-and-so. And they come back and say, I met 5 people. You just gave a business card, a number, and that's it. Did you really get to know them? So this guy, when I was at this event, he said, to really get to know somebody the first time you meet them, you should write yourself a poem, right? And everybody in this room had to title this poem, I Am, right? I am. Who am I? So this is the poem I wrote. If my grammar's off, forgive me. Anyway, so I titled the poem, I Am. And I want you guys to think about this. Think about who you are as I read this. And think about it when you leave here, and maybe write your own poem. The title of the poem is I Am. I am from a higher power. I choose to call him God. I'm from all his descendants all the way down the line until 2 people, Loretta and Marshall, also known as Ricky and Lucy. She was the wacky redhead, and he was the Latin lover, even though he was Italian. So, I'm from an Italian immigrant and a redhead German. I'm from a family of 7 children growing up initially in a 2-bedroom house in Baltimore City. I'm from a lower self-esteem. I'm from a devout Catholic mother. I'm from beginning my work career at age 11, from buying my first pair of Jack Purcells to buying my first car at age 16, my 1969 Ford Fairlane. I'm from a competitive family because I always fought to get what was mine and keep it. I'm from paying my own tuition through high school and college. I'm from FAU, where I played baseball and became a man. I'm from AC/DC, Def Leppard, Ozzy Osbourne. Now I'm from Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Matt Kelly, and more. I'm from the field of dreams, the baseball field, which is a metaphor for life for me. I'm from that 5-pound block of cheese we waited for every week or so from social services when we were struggling financially. I'm from the motivation to be all I can be because I came from and have struggled through the school of hard knocks. I'm from being a dad at 17 to being a grandfather at age 43. From always wanting things to be about me, now wanting things in my motivation to always be about impacting and improving the lives of others. I'm from a world of abundance, wisdom, experience, and knowledge. I'm from a fire that burns within me to reach my full potential and be all I can be. I'm from a family now of Debbie, my wife, Crystal, my daughter, Robbie and Amanda, my children, Bobby, my son-in-law, and Karina, my granddaughter. I'm from being a mentor and a coach. I'm from a business owner and a real estate team of 6. I had 5 written down. We just added Somi here. To an inspiring speaker of thousands. I'm from all that life is. I am who I am. Who are you? And what do you choose to do in your life? And what voice do you choose to listen to? I'll leave you with this. There's a guy we all know, and he had these 3 servants. And he was going on vacation one day. And he gave each of these servants, one he gave 1 talent, one he gave 3, and the other one he gave 5 talents. Now, in those days, a talent was a form of currency, right? I want you to think of it as your skill, your ability, your gift that God gave you. Think of that, right? So he gave 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 5. He goes on vacation, he comes back, and he says, bring in the servants one by one. I want to know what they did with their talents. First guy comes in, the guy who gave 5 to. He says, what did you do with the 5 talents I gave you? He goes, I went out and I doubled them, your majesty. He said, well done, my good and faithful servant. Go on. Next guy comes in, a guy he gave 3 talents to. He said, what did you do with the 3 I gave you? He said, I turned them into 6. He said, well done, my good and faithful servant. And the guy, he comes in with 1. And he says, what did you do with your 1 talent? And he said, in fear of you being a hard man, I buried my talent. And he said, take that talent his and give it to the one who has 10. And why do I share that with you? Because each one of us has a talent. We have a talent, whether it's 1, whether it's 3, whether it's 5. Each one of us in this room has a talent. And if we bury that talent, somebody's going to take it away from you, and they're going to give it to somebody else. And you're not going to experience the life that you were supposed to have because you were afraid. You were afraid to take action. You didn't listen to that humming in your heart. Go out there and take your talents and be who you're supposed to be. And hold me accountable. I'm sitting here, I'm talking about it. I need to practice it myself. Go take your talents, double them, triple them, do whatever you can do and be who you're supposed to be. I'm so honored that you guys came out here tonight. I'm touched. And I want to be a part of all your lives. And I want to help you. I want to help me help you. So guys, thanks for coming out.